So welcome back to another session for your flipped learning for the fifth exercise of your software engineering lab. Okay. So I believe that in the exercise number 3 and 4 you might have completed the first basic level of UML diagrams, that is nothing but the use case and the class diagram. Okay. So students, you need to clearly have a clear-cut mind about these first two UML diagrams, use case and the class. Okay. So normally use case, from the customer point of view, what are the functionalities, what are the responsibilities, and how does he has the relationship between two or more actors, and based on the association, okay, dependency, you might have drawn the diagram. Okay. Similarly, the same concept goes for the class diagram also. So the class diagram, you need to clearly identify who's the superclass, who's the derived class, okay, and what are the methods that are involved, what are the attributes that are involved. So you need to clearly figure out these things and you need to draw the diagrams. Okay. Now we are moving to the second level of the UML diagrams, that is nothing but the activity diagram. Okay. Now this activity diagram, it's quite similar to your state chart diagram. That is nothing but your flow chart diagram. Okay. So if you are coming from a computer science background in your 10th, 12th, then you can easily draw how the system works in a flowchart diagram. Okay. Now the same concept will be applied for the activity diagram, but there will be some minor differences. So if you can able to understand the activity diagram, then flowchart diagram and activity diagram are more similar, as well as it will be very easy to draw the system. Okay. So let's move to the introduction. So the title, the experiment name for your fifth exercise is nothing but design of activity diagrams for the proposed item. Okay. So this is the actual experiment title, but when you start writing your observations, your record, you write it as design of activity diagrams for the proposed item. Okay. Now you need to clearly understand first of all the definition of what is the activity diagram. Okay. So in the first line, you can able to see an activity diagram are used to represents the workflow. Okay. Now imagine we have client and server. Okay. Now if you want to access the internet, okay, you may think that with some clicks you are getting the web page to be loaded, but behind the screen, behind that backend process, you will be seeing a series of workflow. Okay. So imagine if you're sending a hi message through WhatsApp to your friend, within a fraction of a second it will be going. Okay. Within 1 or 2 seconds, that information will be going to the nearest friend. Okay. But in reality, you need to clearly understand how that message travels in the backend system. Okay. So you need to clearly identify what are the systems involved, how the flow actually works, and then only you can able to identify where is the flaw and where you can enhance the proposed item. Okay. So the second point, you can able to see that the activity diagram is nothing but it's a slight variation to the state chart diagram. That's nothing but the flow chart diagram. Okay. So where each and every state will be representing an operation, and the transition will be representing the activities. Okay. But before drawing the activity diagram, there are certain rules. Okay. Now if you draw a flowchart diagram, you know the rules. Okay. For input and output, there will be a parallelogram. For doing the process, you will be drawing a rectangle shape. Okay. For making a decision, diamond shape. Okay. So like this, activity diagram also contains a set of rules. Okay. So if you can able to identify those rules, then it's very easy to draw a particular diagram. Okay. So moving on to the rules, the first rule is the initial and the final state. Okay. So initial and final state is nothing but how the diagram starts and how it ends. Okay. So this black dotted, what you're seeing is the initial state of the activity from where you're starting. Okay. From here you're starting the system. So this will be the initial state, and the final state will be like this. Two circles. So the inner circle is nothing but it's quite similar to the initial circle, but we'll be having a outer circle also. Okay. So these are the two states represents the initial and the final state. Okay. Now we need to identify a series of activities what are taking place. Okay. So we'll be having something called activity state. So it will be represented in an oval shape. Okay, so it will be represented in an oval shape. It's not a circle or nor a rectangle, but it is a combination. Okay, so it's a rectangle with the rounded, curves. Okay, then we have something called transition. Transition is nothing but if you are having two activities, how you are connecting these two activities. Okay, so these are some of the examples of the activities. Okay, so the activity can be either vertical or horizontal, or it can be a U shape also. U shape is nothing but self activities. Okay, self transition. Then we have something called sim line. Okay, sim line is nothing but uh, we'll be going for an example, but you need to clearly understand what are the systems that are involved in your proposed idea. Okay, now for example, we have something called client and server. So client is nothing but the customer, or you can say end user. Okay, so client will be on one side, server will be on the other side. Okay, so we'll need to split the activities, what is happening in the client side and what are the activities that are taking place in the server side. So we'll be drawing a sim line to represent the differentiation. Okay, so again this sim line can be either vertical format or horizontal format depending upon the diagrams how you represent. Okay, so these are some of the basic rules. Okay, now apart from this we have two more rules. Okay, one is called synchronization bar. Okay, so synchronization you can able to know from the word itself, you can able to see the parallel processing objects can be synchronized. Okay, now for example, consider that you have your mobile phone and your laptop. Okay, now you need to synchronize all the information what is taking place. So what happens, you will be through your Gmail, you can able to synchronize all the information, all the password, all the history what you have browsed, everything. Okay, so whatever you are browsing in the laptop, everything will be synchronized in the mobile phone also. Okay, so this part you should be able to clearly understand. So this synchronization bar will be in a form of a vertical bar. Okay, so it can be a vertical bar as well as a horizontal bar. Okay, depending upon the system how you draw. But at the same time, you should be able to know there are two operations performing here. One is called fork and another is called join. Okay, fork is nothing but a simple fork. Okay, if you take a fork, okay, from the handle you can able to see 4 or 3 spikes. Okay, so it means that a single object will be splitted, or it will be parallelly splitted into n number of objects in order to simultaneously complete the job. So that concept is called fork. And join is nothing but it is quite opposite to the fork. Once all the parallel processing are done, so everything will be synchronized, and using the synchronization bar will be joined. Okay, then finally we have the decision. Okay, so decision in the flowchart diagram, it's a diamond shape, and it will be projecting whether two possible actions, either yes or no. Okay, the same concept will be used in this particular activity diagram also. So whatever the rules you saw, initial state, transition, swim line, synchronization bar, activity, with these rules you should be able to draw the activity diagram. Okay, so let us go to a first example. So we'll go for an example called purchasing a product. Okay, now imagine you're purchasing a product either through online or through offline. Okay, offline is, for example, you're going to a shopping mall and you're planning to buy a product. Okay, or if you're planning to if you're planning to buy a product in the Amazon, automatically through your website or the web app you'll be buying. Okay, now purchasing a product. Okay, now you need to clearly understand what are the objects will be involved. Okay, what are the objects will be involved, what are the states will be involved, and what are the systems will be involved. Okay, similar to your use case diagram, you need to identify the actors. Okay, now in the use case diagram, an actor can be a customer, it can be a system. The same thing, you need to clearly identify the objects here. Okay, so first of all, for purchasing a product, we need a customer. Okay, then we need an order processing unit. Okay, now imagine you are planning to buy a particular product. Okay, now automatically what you will do, you will be adding that to the cart, and immediately you will be going for the payment process. But before going to the payment process, okay, what happens is each and every product will be having a unique barcode. So the barcode will be scanning, and it will be saying that the order has been placed. It's ready for the payment process. Whether you can do the payment now or you can able to schedule. Now these things will be taken by the ordering processing unit. Okay. Then we have something called a service provider to do the payment gateway. Okay. Now, as you can able to see, this title is very small, purchasing a product, but these are the actors and systems that are available. Okay. So with these three systems, or you can say objects, you need to draw the activity diagram. Okay. So we have a customer, that is nothing but you, the order processing unit, then we have a service provider. Now, based on these three categories, you need to draw a activity diagram. Okay. So first we'll go for a real-time example of how to draw. First of all, you need to differentiate like this. Okay. The customer will be in one side, order processing will be one side, and finally the payment gateway. Now here you can able to see the customer will be in the front end, and the ordering processing and the payment gateway, these are the back end. Okay, so we have a front end process and we have the back end process. Okay, now you need to draw this swim line like this. Okay, we are differentiating each and every process. Okay, now first we are starting from the customer initial state. You need to define it. So the customer, he will be first of all identifying the product what he wants to purchase. Okay, so either it will be like identify or search, or he can able to add the product, or he can able to list the product, name the product. Okay, so depending upon your style, depending upon how you can able to imagine, you can able to name the states. Okay, it cannot be like this, but according to your taste, your imagination, you can draw like this. Okay, so once you have identified the state, you need to put the transition. Okay, how the flow works. Okay, then once you have identified the product, you will be adding that product to the cart. Okay, now before this adding a cart, you can make a decision also. What happens that product is not available? What if that product is available? You can make a decision, then you can come to the add to cart. Okay, for the time being, I'm directly going for the state. Okay, then again you need to mention the transition of how the states are going. Then finally you are submitting the order for the purchase. Okay, so from the customer side, you can able to see there are three states. Okay, first of all, you're identifying the product, you are identifying the once you've identified, you are moving that to the cart, and once in the cart, you are placing the order and you are ready to purchase the product. Okay, now the front end of the customer is over. Now we'll go for the back end, that is nothing but the order processing unit. Okay, so what happens is we'll be having a synchronization bar here. So why a synchronization bar is placed, I'll tell you. Okay, so what happens is this submission order will be splitted into two or more parallel processing. Okay, so in the one side, what happens is payment process will be initiated. Since now you are submitting the order, now you're ready for making the payment. So automatically what happens in the back end, payment process will be initiated. Okay, so this is the transition. And finally what happens, we'll be having another process. The package will be now placed in that particular convoy. Okay, so after the order, you may think you can able to see the tracking ID, right, from where your order is coming, either from Mumbai or from Karnataka or from Chennai. Okay, so using the track ID, you can able to see. Okay, but before getting the track ID, the package will be ready to be placed for distribution. Okay, so these are the some of the states will be taking in the back end. Okay, so this is called what to say, fork. Okay, from a single activity you are splitting to n number of activities, so this is fork. Okay, so in the payment process, again this is the front end and the back end is nothing but the payment gateway. Okay, so here what happens is it will be cross verifying with your UPI, whether you will be going for net banking or credit card system or any UPI. So automatically it will be asking for authentication. Okay, so the front end is nothing but payment process and the back end is nothing but authentication. Then finally what happens, we'll have another synchronization bar to merge all these things. Okay, once your UPI has been confirmed then automatically what happens? The transition will be returning to the front end. That is nothing but the ordering processing. Okay. Then finally what happens? The transition from the conform state and the transition from the package state will be joining to the synchronization bar in order to confirm your purchase. Okay. So here what you can able to see, this is the fork. Okay, you are splitting one particular transition into one or more than n number of transitions. Okay, once the UPI has been confirmed here, automatically what happens, you will be using the join operation using the synchronization bar. So this transition will be joining here and the package placed also will be joining here. Okay, and finally what happens, it will be showing you out for delivery. So this is the final state. Okay, now after the out for delivery, what happens? The system will be ended. Okay, so this is how you should able to draw your activity diagram for purchasing a product. Okay, now you people have given n number of titles of how your system works. Now according to that, you need to identify the objects or systems. Then you need to identify the states, whether you need a synchronization bar, whether you need a decision here. All these things you should be able to clearly identify and then proceed with this activity diagram. Okay, so this activity diagram, as I told before, it's quite similar to your flow chart, but in the flow chart what happens, it will be going in a sequential order. It will be going from top to bottom. Okay, but in activity diagram what happens, it will be going in a parallel process. Okay, it will be going in a landscape view or it can be in a portrait view. Okay, so I believe that you have a clear understanding how we are drawing this diagram. So I want everyone to carefully choose your objects, systems, and clearly write down what are the states to be written, what are the states to be drawn. Then only you can proceed and you can able to have a clear idea of drawing the activity diagram. Okay, okay.